An epic fail for the Super League. Hi there, welcome to Plain English, lesson number 362. I'm Jeff. JR is the producer, and this full lesson can be found online at plainenglish.com/362. If it's your first time here, then welcome. Plain English is the best podcast for learning English with current events. Every Monday and Thursday, we pick a trending topic or an item in the news to talk about at a bit of a slower pace, and we add a little extra English learning for good measure. Today, we'll talk about the English expression shell out. It's a phrasal verb, and we have a quote of the week. Today's lesson topic is the Super League. The Super League was a European soccer league for about 2 or 3 days, but boy, was it an exciting couple of days. Today, you'll learn about the dramatic rise and fall of the new soccer league, and we'll continue the story on Thursday. The announcement shook the world of European soccer. 12 of the continent's most elite clubs announced they would withdraw from the UEFA Champions League and form their own league with their own rules in a deal that would make the club owners a lot richer and leave less fortunate clubs with fewer opportunities. 6 clubs from the English Premier League, 3 clubs from La Liga in Spain, and 3 clubs from Italy's Serie A were part of the deal. 3 more were expected to join soon. In a joint statement issued Sunday, April 12th, the 12 clubs promised to deliver excitement and drama never before seen in football. And for a fleeting moment, they delivered on that promise. But the drama was off the field, not on it. What happened next was one of the most spectacular failures in the 100-plus-year history of the modern sports business. Fans across Europe openly revolted against the Super League, accusing the billionaire club owners of greed at the expense of their beautiful game. Protests erupted outside stadiums, in the streets, on social media, and on sports talk shows. Fans said that European soccer would never be the same, that the proposal would destroy the essence of sporting competition, that they could never watch another game of their favorite clubs. One fan said he would only go to games wearing black, and he would lay a wreath on his seat. It would be like going to a funeral. It's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace, one Arsenal fan screamed, the suffering and anguish evident in his voice. He said, "You've got billions as it is, and you just want more. You can't help yourself, can you?" He was speaking for fans across England and Europe. French President Emmanuel Macron came out publicly against the idea. Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, also opposed it, going so far as to say that he might propose legislation to outlaw the Super League. Newspapers featured the story on the front and back pages for days. It dominated sports television programs. In the most devastating critique of all, fans and journalists alike accused the Super League of Americanizing European soccer. What could possibly be so bad? To understand, it's helpful to know a little background about how European soccer is organized and especially how it's different from the American and Canadian sports leagues. Each country in Europe has a series of national leagues of clubs. The top leagues feature the best teams and get the most money. These are the English Premier League, La Liga in Spain, Ligue 1 in France. The games are played between teams in the same country, primarily on the weekends. At the same time, there is a continent-wide competition called the Champions League. A small number of the very best teams from each country are invited each year to compete in the Champions League, and these games are played on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. This is where the best competition takes place. The best teams from England face the best teams from Germany. The best from Spain can play the best from Italy, and so on. Both systems, the country leagues and the Champions League, feature a meritocratic system called promotion and relegation. In country leagues, if teams in the top levels don't play well, they can be relegated to a lower quality league, and the best teams from that lower level can be promoted to the top league. The lower level leagues come with less sponsorship and TV revenue, so teams fight to stay in the top league. Likewise, in the Champions League, only the top 3 or 4 teams from each country are invited to play in the prestigious Europe-wide competitions the next year. This is great for drama, excitement, and competition. It's less great for the fortunes of the team owners. The obvious reason is that teams run the risk of being excluded from the Champions League if they don't play well enough in their country leagues. This happened in 2014 when Manchester United, possibly the most prestigious sports brand in the world, played badly in the English Premier League and was not invited to compete in the Champions League the next year. This was a major financial loss to Manchester United, tens of millions of dollars. There's another reason team owners don't love this system. If they want to protect their spot in the highest divisions in their countries, and if they want to protect their spot in the Champions League, they have to spend money on their teams. They have to shell out for the high salaries of the best players. And this is where the European system differs from the North American system. In the American and Canadian football, soccer, baseball, hockey, and basketball leagues, there's a fixed number of franchises playing at the top level. There's no possibility that the New England Patriots of football or the Los Angeles Dodgers of baseball would be relegated to a lower league. It would never happen. American sports leagues are also much more closely knit. The rich teams share revenue with the poor teams. they fairly distribute new talent to all teams, and many of them place a cap on the amount any team can spend on player salaries. All that adds up to two things. Sports team owners in America and Canada make money hand over fist, and team owners don't necessarily mind fielding a losing team year after year, since they know they'll make money either way. Contrast that with the more ruthless meritocratic system in Europe. There's no limit on player salaries. Teams can lose their lucrative position anytime they don't play well. And, not surprisingly, the club owners in Europe, as rich as they are, don't actually make a lot of money from their clubs. The Super League set out to change that. The owners of 12 clubs wanted to create a new league where there was no possibility they would be relegated. These clubs have some of the biggest brands and fan bases in worldwide soccer. By forming a new league, they would be able to negotiate lucrative TV rights to the best games between the most high-profile teams. The clubs on the outside looking in would be shut out of the opportunity to play Man United or Real Madrid and all the associated TV and gate revenue. Let's just say it didn't work out as intended. On Thursday's lesson, we'll talk about how a public revolt caused the Super League plans to collapse after just 2 days. Talk about an own goal. An own goal is when a player accidentally kicks the ball in his team's own goal, scoring for the other team. And that is exactly what happened here. The teams that wanted to break away wanted to weaken the UEFA Champions League, but they just hurt themselves, and if anything, they strengthened the Champions League. Today's expression is to shell out. To shell out is to spend money on something expensive. There's usually a little bit of a bitter or negative undertone when we use this word. When we say someone has to shell out for an expensive item, we are implying that the person spending the money won't necessarily be happy about spending all that money. Do you remember how you heard it earlier? We were talking about the intense competition in the top divisions of European football. In America, if a professional sports team does badly, that team stays in the top league no matter what. It might do badly on the field, but it's still profitable. So American teams don't feel the pressure to shell out for top talent year after year. If they have a losing season, so what? The owners can still cash the checks from rich television and sponsorship deals year after year. But European football is different. With the threat of being relegated to a lower league, team owners feel pressure to shell out for the best players. And the increased competition leads to rising salaries of the stars. In this way, owning a European football team is not very profitable. Every year, the owners are afraid of being kicked down to a lower league, so every year they shell out for rich contracts for players. Does an owner want to pay all that money? I think a lot of owners want the best players and they want to win and they want championships. They will spend the money they need to get there. But they might not quite love the high salaries. Hearing the numbers, signing the big contracts, yes, they want to win, but paying all that money might sting a little. They want the product, they don't love the price. And when we use shell out, we're talking about paying for something expensive, and it usually hurts a little to pay that high price. You can use shell out for something you want, but which is expensive, or, as we'll see, for something you have to pay even if you don't want to. Have you heard of the Hamptons? It's a part of New York State near the ocean. A lot of people who live in New York City have summer homes or vacation homes in the Hamptons. It's a few hours drive or train from the city. Some people prefer to take a helicopter. It's that kind of area. Anyone shopping for a home in the Hamptons will have to shell out more this year than ever before. That's because demand from the pandemic has driven prices up over 30%. Ouch! Okay, the buyers of those homes, they want the house in the Hamptons. It's a lot of money. They will pay the money, but they're not going to love the price. You can't be a bargain hunter these days. If you want that house in the Hamptons, you're going to have to shell out. A big American drug company had to shell out $19 million in lawsuit settlements. They were accused of discriminating in their salaries against people based on their race and ethnicity. As a result, they settled the lawsuit and had to pay $19 million. That's a lot of money. I guarantee you they didn't like paying that money, but in this case, we say they had to shell out $19 million. If you're selling something affordable, something cheap, you might say that your customers don't need to shell out for the expensive brands. Come buy the more affordable version instead, you might say. There's no need to shell out for a designer handbag. You can get a stylish one from Kate Spade for a lot less. If you follow lots of Instagram influencers, you might be under the impression that you have to shell out for lots of expensive beauty products or skincare products. But you probably don't need to shell out too much cash. A lot of very similar beauty products are available for much lower prices. I hear from so many people that they want to save up a lot of money and come to the US or Canada and study English at a university. And that can be a good option for some people, but it's awfully expensive, and I honestly think that most people should not shell out for an expensive course in America. One thing I've heard people do is go to Australia on a temporary work permit that allows you to get a job for a period of time. I think that's a great option because you can make a little money and you're forced to learn on the job. Time for a quote of the week. Today's is from a former Dutch soccer player, David Bergkamp. He said, "Behind every kick of the ball, there has to be a thought." If only the Super League owners had consulted David Bergkamp. The Super League was a big action without much thought behind it. Behind every kick of the ball, there has to be a thought. Wise words on and off the field. And that's all for today. Remember, the story continues on Thursday when we'll talk about the 3 factors that brought down the Super League, including the intense fan reaction. And if you enjoyed today's lesson, and if you'd like to continue to build your skills in English, improve your pronunciation, get better at listening, and speak English with more confidence, then I invite you to join me, JR, and English learners from around the world as members of Plain English Plus. You'll get lots of great resources and personalized support in your learning. We'd love to have you, so if this is of interest, come join us by visiting plainenglish.com/plus, PLUS.